into a topic with views from across the range of debate, therefore leaving you, the viewer, to make up your own mind. Join me, Alex Phillips, for the afternoon agenda on GB News, 4 till 6, Monday to Thursday. You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome to On the Money, your daily weekday dose of economics, business and consumer news. I'm Liam Halligan, and for the next hour, we'll be talking about the future of oil prices and the cost of living more generally as the OPEC exporters cartel meets today. Plus, we examine efforts to crack down on economic crime and the millions of pounds being made from computer-generated non-fungible tokens. It's a jam-packed show, so stay with us. But first, it's the GB News headlines with Rhiannon Jones.
I'm Rhiannon Jones. This is your news at 1 o'clock. A new COVID antibody treatment has been approved for use in the UK. Clinical trials found Xevudy cut hospital admissions and deaths by 79% in those at risk of developing severe disease. GlaxoSmithKline says it works against the new Omicron variant. The government has also secured 114 million jabs for potential booster campaigns over the next 2 years. Professor of Experimental Immunology Kingston Mills says they should help in the fight against the new variant.
We do know that boosting did enhance not only the antibody response to the original Wuhan strain, but also the Delta strain and the Alpha strain that preceded it. So there's a good chance that we'll at least give some protection. So I think there's a strong case to be made for boosting now with what's available.
Scientists believe they've found the trigger that causes rare blood clots after the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. An international team from Cardiff and the US thinks it now understands how the vaccine can sometimes cause a chain reaction in the immune system. It's hoped the findings will help prevent and treat blood clots in the future. The Mail on Sunday has lost its Court of Appeal challenge against the Duchess of Sussex. That's after the paper published a personal letter from Meghan Markle to her estranged father. In a statement, she said that the invasion of privacy is a daily fail and that her victory again cements that the paper broke the law. France has accused Boris Johnson of starting the row over migrants. President Emmanuel Macron reportedly described the Prime Minister as a clown and a knucklehead as tensions ran high over the crisis in the Channel. Senior government sources say despite the comments, Mr Johnson continues to be a staunch advocate of the UK-France relationship. French politician Bruno Bonnell told GB News the Prime Minister has only himself to blame for the international spat.
Publicizing a negotiation letter that should be underground and that should really remain behind curtains before we have an agreement was not something really nice to do, and not really smart, by the way, to do. So I think that in terms of rudeness, I would say that at this stage of the tension, I wouldn't point one or the other. I would just say that people are protecting their own interest.
Here we are with 27 totally unnecessary deaths. All Frontex can do is send one aeroplane. All the French president can do is sling insults at the Prime Minister. This is just really, really ridiculous. We should be trying to solve the problem, not insult each other.
The Ministry of Defence has set a new target for female recruits, aiming to more than double the number by 2030. It follows a landmark inquiry into the treatment of women in the armed services. It found that 64% of veterans and 58% of those still serving experienced bullying, harassment and discrimination during their careers. The government says the inquiry shows that the MOD has failed women on too many occasions. Forces Employment Charity CEO Alistair Halliday says gender diversity needs to be considered.
It absolutely makes sense that there is a push more to recruit more female, get more female recruits in with all the skills that they bring. I mean, there's been various reviews recently about the way that, diversity and various other issues are tackled. And I think the three services, all of them, are taking this pretty seriously right now to make sure that it is a great place for female recruits to have a long and lasting and fulfilling career.
Christmas shoppers are being warned against relying on positive reviews for their purchases. The National Trading Standards says there's been a rise in criminals writing fake reviews to sell poor products. Government figures show they potentially influence £23 billion of UK consumer spending every year. The Competition and Markets Authority has launched a formal investigation into Amazon and Google over concerns they're not doing enough to combat fake reviews. You're right up to date. I'll bring you the latest headlines in half an hour, but for now, let's return to Liam and On the Money.
And this is On the Money. Today, it's the OPEC summit. That's the Organisation of Petroleum Exporting Countries. This 15-strong group of nations, led by Saudi Arabia, wields enormous clout. And what it says and does will do much to determine the future path of oil prices and therefore fuel, energy and transport prices and inflation in general. On the show, we'll also be talking to Tory MP Kevin Hollinrake, who's calling on the government to bring forward economic crime reforms in the hope of tackling money laundering in the UK. Plus, imagine making millions of pounds from computer-generated images like these. Well, today we'll be meeting the men who've dived deep into the lucrative digital art market. James Ryan, Josh Sandhu and Ryan Marsh. They've recently launched the first European advisory service for NFTs. That's non-fungible tokens, to help others gain an understanding of the digital art market. They'll be telling us more about their unique and successful business in today's Startup Britain. And as ever, send in your thoughts and opinions on today's show. Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. We'll be reading out some of your emails later in the show, so stay with us. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and you're On the Money. Today marks the latest summit of the OPEC exporters cartel. That meeting's literally started in the last few minutes. The question now, will OPEC and its allies agree to pump more crude oil onto global markets? It's a question you won't see discussed on many mainstream news bulletins today, but believe me, it's an issue of massive economic and political importance. During recent days, emerging concerns about the Omicron variant have seen the price of oil weaken. Renewed anti-COVID restrictions, if they do end up being widespread, would slow down the global economy. Countless businesses, from freight shipping lines to steel freight factories, from airlines to car makers, would then use less fuel, bringing oil prices down. While that may bring down today's sky-high petrol and diesel prices too, the OPEC Plus group, which roughly speaking is the Saudi-led 15-nation cartel plus Russia, wants to resist oil prices falling. OPEC Plus has huge power, accounting for around half of global oil production. That's 50 million of the 100 million barrels the world uses each and every day. Last Thursday, when news of Omicron shocked global markets, oil fell $10 a barrel. Back in October, crude was close to $90, a three-year high, but it's since tumbled to around $70, with November marking the biggest monthly decline since the start of the pandemic. Despite that, President Joe Biden recently announced he was taking the unusual step of releasing emergency oil supplies in a bid to bring prices down further, whether OPEC pumps more oil or not. Financial markets viewed that as a sign of panic, and OPEC prices and oil prices rose on Biden's move. Their future trajectory is now in the hands of OPEC and Russia, countries which don't want the global economy to slump, and they want more money for their oil, but they're not particularly keen on helping Western oil importers. Now, the outcome of this OPEC meeting, which is just a few minutes old, will determine a great deal, whether petrol and diesel prices now pushing £1.50 a litre go even higher. The impact of oil prices on inflation is also key. If oil eases, inflation will fall back, making it less likely the Bank of England will impose repeat interest rate rises. Global oil markets are complex. Oil diplomacy is often impossible to read. But we like a challenge here on The Money. So that's your On The Money question today. With petrol prices sky high, what is OPEC's next move? As always here on The Money, we have grown-up conversations with people who really know their stuff. And on that note, I'm delighted to welcome our panel, former Treasury economist Julian Jessup, now of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Marco Vincenzino, the geopolitical analyst. We also have David Fife, the chief economist at global intelligence provider Argos Media, which specialises in writing about oil and gas. And of course, our On The Money regular in the studio, Jasmine Birtles, founder of MoneyMagpie.com. Welcome to you all. Let's start with you, David. We're a few minutes into this OPEC meeting. What are we expecting?
Yeah, I mean, I think until maybe even a week ago, from this meeting, we probably would have expected them to stick with the plan, which is to gradually push an incremental 400,000 barrels per day onto the market each month through to the spring. I think with the emergence of Omicron and the fact that prices are now, flirting with $70 or below for Brent, it's quite possible today that they'll come up with a decision to defer that increase in production for January. Now, there are some producers, Russia, the United Arab Emirates, who probably will argue against that and have been on record saying that they think production increases should continue. But it's really all down to what Saudi Arabia decides is going to be best for the market. And I suspect that they'd like to put a $70 floor under the price.
Interesting. So if Omicron does slow down the global economy, oil prices will fall or they won't rise. So OPEC doesn't feel the need to push more oil than it already expected to push onto global markets. Julian, let's talk to you. You're a very close observer of global oil markets too. I know you've also had a great deal to say on UK inflation in recent weeks and months, not least here on The Money. I'm pleased to have you. We are too. What are you expecting from this OPEC meeting and how it impacts on particularly UK inflation, petrol prices, fuel prices, energy prices going forward?
Well, first of all, I agree with your previous guest. I think they probably will pause the plan to gradually increase production by 400,000 barrels a day. maybe just for a few months, but I think there are good reasons for them to do that. I mean, one is the sharp fall in oil prices we've seen over the last week, but the other that you also mentioned in your introduction is I think they're pretty annoyed at the way that the US has led an attempt to drive down oil prices by releasing strategic reserves, a plan that the UK, I think, rather mistakenly joined in with. So I think there are good sort of market and political reasons for them to pause for a little while. I think that decision is probably largely priced into the market, so I wouldn't expect a big move in oil prices on the back of it. And if we step back and look at the big picture, even after the sharp fall we've seen over the last month or so, oil prices are still near multi-year highs. So even if the price of petrol drops a little bit in the next few weeks, I think it probably will, it's still going to be a lot higher than before the pandemic struck. And that's going to keep adding to UK inflation for several months yet. Indeed, even if oil prices fall a lot in the next few months, we're probably still going to get further upward pressure on inflation in April next year, when Ofgem is due to review the domestic energy price cap. And I think that's almost certain to go up further. So even if oil prices do drift off a bit from here, I still think we'll be talking about high headline inflation, around 5% or so, for several months to come.
Marco Vincenzino, you're joining us from Florida. Great to have you with us on the show once again. You're always welcome. We wanted to bring a US voice in here, not least because Joe Biden, in conjunction with the Brits, did sanction a rare release of some of the strategic petroleum reserve onto global markets. But it wasn't very much, was it? We're talking about 50 million barrels over a few months sanctioned by the US president. Well, the world's using 100 million barrels a day. How was that move by Biden viewed in the US?
I think it was mostly a political reaction, domestic political pressure in the United States to say that he's doing something in light of everything going on in the world. But I think it was largely political, a way to cover himself, particularly with domestic political U.S. opinion. Not so much, it was not so much targeted at an international audience or at international markets. It was more, I think I said, targeted at a domestic U.S. market. Obviously, his numbers have not been doing well in recent times, and he has to be seen as, quote unquote, doing something. So I think that move that he made was much of, reflects that political need of Joe Biden.
We highlighted earlier in the week, Tamsin, that Republican activists were sticking images of Joe Biden on petrol pumps around the US, pointing to the price, which is over $4 a barrel in some places, $4 a gallon for gas, a US gallon, and saying, I did that. Why is the stuff that we're talking about here, global oil diplomacy, OPEC, exporting cartels, why does this stuff matter for ordinary men and women watching this show?
Well, it's the price of petrol. And they do say that in America, if you can't fill up your car, that's when you change the government. I mean, it has that kind of effect, certainly there. And here, it affects us very much in our pockets. So it's not just us individually filling up our cars, but also it affects the price of everything else because, of course, everything has to be transported. So, as we've already talked about inflation, it hits us, the individuals, the consumers, in our pocket on a daily basis. So we're very interested in the price of petrol, definitely.
David, it strikes me that lots of us these days have lost sight of the power of OPEC. At least that's my opinion. That's my view of the media. Back in the 70s, 80s, the time of oil price shocks, we all understood how powerful this Middle Eastern-based cartel was. But it strikes me when you look at the numbers, they're still controlling 50% of global production if you include Russia, not an OPEC member, but as part of the OPEC Plus group. And they control 90% of known global oil reserves. That's oil in the ground and under the sea that we know of. Do you think we're in danger sometimes, without being alarmist, of underplaying just how important OPEC still is?
I think you're absolutely right to highlight their pivotal role. And I do think a lot of people, until about April of last year, at the depths of the pandemic, a lot of people had pretty much written off OPEC or OPEC Plus. And at that time, when oil demand globally was collapsing, they came up with this deal to slash supply by 10 million barrels per day, which very few observers would have seen coming. or indeed seen them managing to stitch together a deal of that sort. And really, in the period since then, they've been pretty successful in slowly releasing oil back onto the market, keeping prices for their budget relatively high. Obviously, that's been a source of concern for the US, for the EU, and others. But I think actually, OPEC Plus is very much back in the game. And anyone who underestimates their ability to influence the market is going to be surprised.
Julian, the Bank of England will be watching the oil price closely, won't they? You and I have been critical that they haven't moved on interest rates here in the UK yet. If OPEC does basically decide that Omicron means that they don't have to bring oil prices down because a slowing going global economy will bring oil prices down, doesn't that make it less likely the Bank of England will raise interest rates?
Well, I mean, first of all, I hope it doesn't actually matter either way. I think it's important not to lose sight of the big picture, which is that the UK economy has recovered to close to pre-COVID levels and inflation is well above target. So I think the justification for keeping interest rates as low as they are now and continuing to pump loads of money into the economy, that justification has now gone. As far as the impact of petrol prices is concerned, I'd be sceptical that's going to be a game changer for the Bank of England in any event. That's partly because I think fuel and petrol prices are going to remain relatively high and still be adding to inflation almost regardless of what the OPEC decision is today. But also, I think there's a danger of focusing just on specific prices and not looking at the bigger picture. So what we're seeing now is that the initial increase in inflation, which was led by energy prices and a few other bits and pieces, is now spreading into the wider economy. So underlying inflation is picking up. So even if petrol prices do drop back sharply over the next few months, it might simply be that underlying inflation pressures pop up elsewhere. And given that we've got all this cheap money chasing too few goods and services, I think there's a danger of focusing on just one or two items and not forgetting that underlying inflation pressures in the economy overall are still very strong.
Well said, that man. Marco Vincenzino, let's give the last word to you. Have to be brief, I'm afraid, because we're up against time pressures. To what extent do you think Biden is going to go back on previous decisions to restrict the US oil industry? President Trump seemed a lot more friendlier towards those shale oil producers. Do you think Joe Biden's Democrats will eventually go that way, particularly if they think the US is coming under pressure from OPEC?
Yeah, I mean, basically, he's under pressure from the left wing of his party, who call him the progressive movement in terms of for environmental purposes. So he has to take that into consideration, but he has to take into consideration market realities. Is that he's going to need a cheaper price of oil in order to, he's looking at the 2022 midterm elections in November of 2022. So he has to basically strike a balance between pressure from within his own party and the realities of the market and the wider American public in terms of what their needs are.
Thank you very much for that, Marco Vincenzino. Great Christmas tree there in Florida, just behind your head. Thank you also to Julian Jessop, former Treasury economist, of course, and to David Fife, Chief Economist at Argos Media. Always welcome on the show. You're watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. After the break, we'll be talking to Tory MP Kevin Hollinrake, who's on a mission to crack down on economic crime. Jasmine Birtles, our personal finance expert, she stays with us for that important chat. So stick with us here on GB News, because you're on the money.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. It is cold out there today, but that strong wind that we had yesterday is gradually easing down, and for most, there's quite a bit of sunshine around as well. Here's the bigger picture. This little bump in the isobar's a ridge of high pressure, bringing most a fine day today. But this weather front will bring some wet weather tonight. And there are these little features that have been pushing down from the north. One brought some sleet and snow to parts of Wales and southwest England earlier on. That's clearing away. We do still have showers, though, just bumping into the east coast of England, particularly for Norfolk there, chiefly of rain. Elsewhere, most places fine and bright, sunny spells. The cloud increasing there for Northern Ireland and Scotland, so the sunshine turning hazy. It is chilly, temperatures below average for the time of year. but at least that wind is easing. Still a cold wind blowing those showers into the east coast through this evening, and then that next weather system bringing wet weather with some snow as it hits the colder air across Scotland for a time, and perhaps also for a time over parts of northern England, maybe even into the Midlands. A little bit of sleet and snow is possible, but although it'll turn quite cold this evening, that weather system will also introduce milder air, so temperatures will rise through the night. Still perhaps a little bit of snow across East Anglia and the southeast if you're up early enough on Friday morning, but that will quickly turn back to rain before the rain clears away. More rain then coming into the southwest later on tomorrow, but for, again, the bulk of the UK, it's dry. Quite a drab day across the south, lots of cloud here, but some sunny spells further north, but there will be some showers coming into western Scotland. Those showers of rain at low levels, but turning to snow over the hills. We could see a bit more rain pushing into Wales and perhaps a bit further north, maybe into the Midlands during Friday evening, and that leads into a mixed picture through the weekend. Going to stay on the cold side through the weekend. Some sunshine, but plenty of showers on Saturday. Sunny for many on Sunday, but still some showers along the east coast.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. Now, economic crime affects all of us, with fraud now the most widespread crime in the UK. Some 4.6 million fraud cases are reported each year, yet police prosecuted only 500 in 2020. The government's pledge to tackle economic crime, which includes money laundering and human trafficking, promises yet to be met. Now, Conservative MP Kevin Hollinrake and Labour MP Margaret Hodge are calling on the government to prioritise the economic crime bill in this parliamentary term. That motion, backed by over 40 other MPs, is being tabled in the Commons today. And here to tell us more, it is Kevin Hollinrake, Conservative MP for Thirsk and Malton, who joins us live from Westminster. And, of course, Jasmine Birtles, founder of MoneyMagpie.com, is still with us. Kevin, congratulations on what you're attempting to do. Backbenchers taking the parliamentary initiative. Of course, you're a very senior parliamentarian. Your Labour colleague in this effort, Margaret Hodge, is herself a former chair of the Public Accounts Committee. Quite a heavyweight pairing. You've got lots of backing. Are you confident the government's going to take notice and help you get this legislation through the Commons?
Well, I very much hope so, Liam. Thanks for the opportunity to explain what we're doing. Most of what we're proposing, the government's already committed to do. So things like Companies House reform, things like a register of ownership of UK properties of overseas entities, for example, and failure to prevent economic crime, so corporations having to put checks and balances in place to make sure money laundering, for example, is not happening through their organisations. The government talks about bringing those things forward, is consulting on some of them. We're just trying to give them the hurry up. But I think the key to this is the crimes, the most appalling crimes that we all see on our screens every day, not least the small boat crossings. If you look at that, that is all driven and facilitated by organised crime. They wouldn't be carrying out those crimes if they couldn't do something with the money. And that's what economic crime is all about. If you earn tens of millions of pounds through these evil trade, you need to be able to do something with it. You can't simply buy a house with it. You need to be able to launder that money. And that's what we facilitate in the UK, as well as other countries doing as well. And that's what we need to clamp down on.
This is legislation that's already scheduled to go through the Commons. What's happening is that you, Margaret Hodge, two senior backbenchers, if I may say so, together with a cross-party group of MPs, 40 strong and growing, you're making sure there's no slippage, there's no pushback from the financial services industry, for instance, that will water down this legislation. You're making sure that this legislation holds the road, if you like.
Exactly right. It's not actually scheduled. So it's proposed. We're consulting on it. We're looking at it. We've talked about doing it in the past, but we haven't done it. And as you rightly know, say, Liam, there's lots of vested interest in this space. And you can see lots of lobbying going on to try and persuade the government potentially to water down some of these proposals. For example, the failure to prevent economic crime, which is massive, a criminal offence of doing that. There is talk of that being a regulatory offence rather than a criminal offence, which would weaken the deterrent around that. So we want to make sure this comes forward quickly and it comes forward in its full fat version, if you like. So it really does have its proper teeth and it really does hold people to account, which is a deterrent. But also we could see people potentially going to jail if they don't clamp down on this evil trade.
We've talked about consumer fraud, haven't we, Jasmine, here on The Money several times in the past. Those authorised push payments, will the bank compensate you and so on? You get a lot of talk on this on your moneymagpie.com website. So consumers should be grateful for what Kevin Hollinrake and indeed Margaret Hodge and the other MPs are trying to do, beefing up this legislation, making sure it gets through the House and protects consumers more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, thank goodness for Kevin and Margaret doing that, because as Kevin points out, this is funding some of the most disgusting, heinous crimes around the world, global crime, terrorism, etc. And it's us as the individuals often who are actually paying for it, because anytime we get, as you say, these sort of scams, these frauds, much of the time that is going to fund these activities. But I think that Kevin and Margaret are being very courageous in what they do, because there are seriously vested interests in this country, in London in particular.
Powerful financial services lobby.
Yes, and they
a lot of campaign donations.
Oh, yes.
A lot of pressure on ministers.
Yeah, they're really, absolutely, because we do very nicely. In London particularly, there's a whole lot of money laundering that happens in the
and financial services is a big business. You know, Leeds has got a big financial services industry. Edinburgh famously got a big financial services industry. Belfast, there's lots going on. Cardiff. It isn't just the City of London, but it's mainly the City of London.
Exactly, yes. And you're talking millions and billions that go through this country. So, yeah, some people have been doing, a few people have been doing very nicely, thank you, off this. The majority of us, we are suffering from it.
Kevin, I must say, I mean, I tip my hat to you. The conversations we've had and then hearing about this legislative initiative you're doing with Margaret Hodge, former chair of the Public Accounts Committee, they've really opened my eyes. I didn't realise that there were 4.6 million cases of reported fraud in the UK every year and only 500 were prosecuted. They are pretty powerful numbers, and it strikes me that if you and others can get those numbers pushed into the public domain to become a kind of media thing, then you're going to have a lot more power to get your bill through the Commons.
Yes, definitely. I mean, economic crime is now the most common crime. It's over 40% of crime, yet our law enforcement resources are not particularly well directed or well resourced in terms of tackling this kind of stuff. But there's so many people, and it's individuals. You're quite right, Jasmine is absolutely right. It's individuals that are suffering from this as well, push payment fraud, all those kind of things. At the moment, Google and Facebook have no responsibility to make sure that people advertising on their platforms are bona fide organizations. All these investment scams are facilitated by the platforms we use every day. This legislation would really send a shot across their bows. If they do that, they get huge fines and potentially go to jail. So it really would be transformational in terms of clamping down that crime that affects all of us, almost all of us, on a daily basis.
The likes of yourself and Margaret Hodge, you'll have done your political intelligence gathering. Are ministers listening to you? Do you think you've got a chance of success here?
Yes, I do think they're listening. I think they want to tackle this. In the end of the day, having a transparent, clean system is good for business. It's not bad for business. So yes, of course, there'll be some vested interest that are saying we shouldn't do this or go as far as they want to go. I think it's a really good thing for UK PLC that we tackle this stuff. And clearly, it's got to be right that we clamp down on drug dealing, terrorism, money laundering, the expropriation of public money, the impoverishment of nations, which we then try and put some money in on the basis of our international aid budget. So there's lots of things that we can tackle by taking forward this legislation. I think ministers can see that. We just need to make sure we do that as quickly as possible.
Last word briefly to you, Jasmine, if I may. It strikes me that this is a subject we need to keep our eye on here on The Money.
Big time. Yeah, I was just thinking that because it really, the more noise that we make about it, the more people are shouting about this, not just MPs, but as you say, media, all kinds of people, the more likely it is that something will be done, I think.
Well, I'm sure you and I will be here talking about this again soon on The Money, and indeed Kevin Hollinrake. Thank you to Kevin Hollinrake, Conservative MP for Thirsk and Malton. Best of luck with your campaign in the Commons. Thank you also to Jasmine. You're watching On The Money with me, Liam Halligan. Coming up, today's Startup Britain interview with the co-founders of Qantas Gallery. It's the gallery with a twist because it sits at the forefront of NFT collecting, non-fungible tokens. Who knew? But before that, here's the GB News headlines with Rhiannon Jones.
I'm Rhiannon Jones. Here are the latest headlines. A new COVID antibody treatment has been approved for use in the UK. Clinical trials found Xevudy cut hospital admissions and deaths by 79% in those at risk of developing severe disease. The government has also secured 114 million jabs for potential booster campaigns over the next 2 years. Scientists believe they've found the trigger that causes rare blood clots after the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine. A team from Cardiff and the US thinks it now understands how the vaccine can sometimes cause a chain reaction in the immune system. It's hoped the findings will help prevent and treat blood clots in future. A man has been charged in connection with the death of 16-year-old Amber Gibson in South Lanarkshire. She was reported missing on Friday when she didn't return to her home in Hamilton. Her body was found in a park on Sunday. The 19-year-old will appear at Hamilton Sheriff Court on Friday. The Mail on Sunday has lost its Court of Appeal challenge against the Duchess of Sussex. That's after the paper published a personal letter from Meghan Markle to her estranged father. In a statement, she said that the invasion of privacy is a daily fail and that her victory again cements that the paper broke the law. The Ministry of Defence has set a new target for female recruits, aiming to more than double the number by 2030. It follows a landmark inquiry into the treatment of women in the armed services. It found that 64% of veterans and 58% of those still serving experienced bullying, harassment and discrimination during their careers. And Christmas shoppers are being warned against relying on positive reviews for their online purchases. The National Trading Standards says there's been a rise in criminals writing fake reviews to sell poor products. Government figures show they potentially influence £23 billion of UK consumer spending every year. I'll have more on all of today's main stories at the top of the hour. See you then.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. Now it's time for a regular On the Money feature where we showcase some of the UK's most successful and unique companies right now, asking just how they did it. Yes, it's time. It's Startup Britain. Now, back in September, On the Money spoke about the millions of pounds being made from NFTs. That's non-fungible tokens. In essence, that's the owning of an original digital image. We revealed that pieces like these have sold for thousands and thousands of dollars, and others like these have raised millions. It's a lucrative business as the digital art market's grown by a staggering 300% over the last year. And NFT collectors James Ryan, Josh Sandu and Ryan Marsh saw an opportunity and they founded Qantas Gallery, the first European NFT advisory service which helps art appreciators gain an understanding of the digital art market and get in on the ground floor with NFT collecting. Here to tell us more, it's the founders of Qantas Gallery. Very nice to see you, gentlemen. Now, James, you are familiar to some viewers because you were in the On the Money studio not so long ago. We were talking about somebody we both know, Mike Parry, the radio DJ. He's often here on GB News. He was trying to sell a YouTube clip where he tries to swallow loads of cinnamon and do the cinnamon challenge, and hilariously coughed. And yeah, how many times have you showed that to your friends after a few beers?
Yeah.
Since then, things have moved on.
Yes. So since the show, obviously I came on because I have the traditional art background, essentially. We've teamed up and formed Qantas in the last couple of months. We've got a launch date set for a few days' time. And Josh and Ryan sort of bring more to the table and just allow us to have the real power team. So we've got myself with my background, with artist backgrounds and understanding the traditional art market, bringing that to the table. Josh is the real brains behind Qantas in the form of being involved in NFTs for quite some time now. And then obviously Ryan has a background within the wealth department. We've actually met with another one of your guests since
where's my
the show. Yeah, there you go. I know
it's on its way.
It's on its way. The check is in the post. The check is in the post. But so we've teamed up with a specialist law firm as well. Who could really sort of help us and fill any voids that may be about. And then we also have a specialist accountancy practice. So yeah, we really feel like we can bring something new to the table. And we're very, very excited.
That's interesting. companies being formed here in the On the Money studio, because what we were trying to do then was we were trying to ascertain how Mike Parry could sell this digital file and what it would mean to actually own it. Does that mean other people can't watch it, etc., etc.? And we did involve lawyers in that discussion. Josh, you're a relative veteran of the NFT market. Tell me about your experience with these non-fungible tokens. And can you explain what they are to my mum?
I can, yeah. So I'll explain that first. All you need to really know is that it's a digital certificate that proves you own something.
Okay.
So in our case here, because we're in the art industry, it proves, our NFTs will prove that you own a piece of art. Now, the confusion kind of tends to come in where someone like yourself or anyone in the general public will be like, can't I just save that on my phone? I've sent it to someone else. Why has this got value?
Download it, rip it, right, as we say.
Exactly. The reason why is because those are just copies. They don't have that certificate. They don't own it.
Right,
That's where the value comes in, really. That's it.
But say it's a YouTube clip, Josh. Anyone can see the clip online, even if you own the NFT. So why own the NFT?
Well, you think of it like this. Let's say Banksy was to do a video creative.
Yeah, the sort of viral guerrilla artist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, there would be value in somebody owning the original of that. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where NFTs come into it. So yes, you could upload it onto YouTube, for example.
Yeah.
Everyone can see it.
Yeah.
Nobody can own it.
Yeah.
And just because they've seen it, they can't make money from it. But the person who's purchased it, they can resell it.
Because of the scarcity value. I mean, there are many copies of the Mona Lisa, but the actual Mona Lisa by Da Vinci is still extremely valuable.
You know, how many people take a picture of the Mona Lisa?
Yeah.
That's
absolutely
value. No?
So it's like Scooby-Doo or something. You're the brains, and you know about the art market.
Yes. Yeah.
And where do you come in?
So my background is finance. I've always worked in finance, introducing high net worths into a number of different investment vehicles.
High net worths are people with lots of money.
Exactly that. The buzzword for the last year has been NFTs, following on from cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know what NFTs are. It all leads with curiosity. Curiosity creates interest. Interest then creates opportunity. And that's where we're at right now. So I'm talking to these people that I've had relationships with over the years, and these people are asking me, Ryan, what are NFTs? How do we get involved in NFTs?
Yeah.
So Qantas Gallery aim to educate and facilitate from start to finish how you buy NFTs, how you sell NFTs, what makes NFTs valuable. You know, that's what we aim to do, the 360 cycle from start to finish.
And when you talk to your wealthy investors, I guess a lot of them, they don't know what to invest in, right? Because the stock market, many people think it looks overvalued.
Yeah.
They worry about sterling because the Bank of England's been printing money like Billy-O, and the same with the Federal Reserve, so they worry about the dollar. They worry maybe that gold prices have been pumped up too high because the Chinese central bank's been buying lots of gold, and the Singapore central bank, we learnt overnight. They worry about US Treasury bills because they're yielding less than the rate of inflation, so that's negative. So is it true that people are looking for alternative investments, like classic cars, like physical arts, and now like digital art?
I would personally say so myself, yes. Not necessarily, a large chunk of their portfolios, but certainly 10, 15, 20% of their portfolio to move into an area that they can reap the rewards that we've seen through a number of different auction prices that have reached exponential heights. So clients that I'm talking to want to, have something where they can potentially make that kind of money and not just have their static 5%, 2%, 1% every year. They want something that's there that can reach new heights. So the answer is yes to that. They are looking for alternative asset classes.
Have you guys all given up your full-time jobs? Are you all in on this? Have you all put money in to build?
Yeah, we've got skin in the game without a shadow of a doubt. Obviously, a lot of people are saying, could this potentially be a bubble? What you have to understand is there's so many big, major blue-chip brands getting behind this.
Really?
Oh, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. It is the future. And again, you have people still kicking themselves to this day that they didn't get involved in Bitcoin at the very beginning. And you had all of that sort of negativity around that market. The same has happened and will follow with the NFT market. But that being said, the size of the market has grown from $1 billion in sales last year up to 11 billion. And that was as of the third quarter of this year. So the facts speak for themselves. Is what
I guess in general, investors, and by investors we don't just mean wealthy people, we mean pension funds, insurance companies, we mean institutions that ordinary men and women have small, modest savings with. They're all looking for things to invest in that have scarcity value, things the government isn't printing more of at a time when central bank balance sheets are absolutely ballooning. But
we need to get you working in the advisory.
You couldn't afford me. James was talking there about the importance of scarcity value and cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and others. But a lot of the people will know, just if you read the papers on this stuff, there are security issues with Bitcoin. There is fraud knocking about. Bitcoins can vaporize. They can be taken off you. It is kind of the Wild West. Yes. How does a young, OK, you're experienced guys, but you're relatively young, with all respect.
Yes.
How do you reassure people, and what steps are you taking to make sure that these NFTs are secure, there isn't fraud? We were just talking about earlier. Those certificates can't be taken away, because the certificates themselves are just digital, right? They're not physical pieces of paper.
That's correct,
You can put in a frame on the wall.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of, because NFTs are basically a token, they're really just a cryptocurrency themselves that happen to have something attached to them. So it could be a bit of musical art. They function in the same way. So as far as security is concerned, in this sphere, there are insurance companies coming in. Because it's, let's be realistic.
I know, that's why you're on the show.
Well,
this stuff's going mainstream.
Yes, it is. It is. Mass adoption hasn't happened yet, but it's happening. All Silicon Valley, that's the direction they're going in. But in terms of like someone's security, let's say they purchase an NFT, the same way if they purchase Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency, they could put it on a ledger or something. So actual physical device, that digital certificate is on a physical device, and they could put it somewhere, put it in a vault somewhere. So, it just depends on what you're comfortable with, really. Obviously, if there's insurance companies, you go with them. So there's options, and, as far as like scams and everything, I mean, it's the same as any industry, to be quite frank. Most scams and all of this happens with, fiat currency anyway.
Ryan, let's go back to you just for a minute. Why should ordinary people, though, care about this? They may have tiny little savings in, in an insurance company or a pension plan or something, and they may then invest to a tiny little degree in crypto, which includes these ultra-alternative asset classes. But do you see these alternative asset classes growing beyond, with all respect, sort of geeky people trying to get in and make a buck? Fair play to you. This is business. You're pushing the envelope. But do you see these really alternative investments going really mainstream, like, say, classic cars or contemporary and existing physical art, the kind of stuff that you've looked at?
Great question. I think that yes is the answer to that. Reason being is that there's so many different ways that these NFTs can engage and help people throughout the course of life. So the utilities that they bring isn't just a physical piece of art that we're looking at on a digital form. There can be NFTs that are used for the music industry. We're talking about creating films and music and then giving royalties to people that buy the NFTs at the early stages. That's a game changer by itself. You've then got the likes of Facebook, you've got Louis Vuitton, you've got big billion-pound organisations who are moving towards NFTs, whether it's for fashion wear, whether it's for, the unparalleled universe, for the metaverse. They're all moving that way. That's the way the world is shifting. So like it or lump it, it is turning heads. So I think certainly from some degree, not necessarily everybody, I'm not saying that, but 9 times out of 10 people are certainly interested to find out more, and having a small proportion of your portfolio in NFTs, or certainly understanding NFTs, would not harm you at all. But I can see it certainly shifting to that sphere, 100%.
It strikes me, James, that what we're seeing here is the sort of long-established world of intellectual property, which goes right back to, the first time people were trading stones on beaches and sticks. Conventional intellectual property law is now kind of joining up with the Wild West world of the internet. You're trying to formalise intellectual property for assets that only exist in digital form.
Yeah, so I think with that question and also what you asked earlier, it's important to understand the people that are behind this business and the fact that we are ethical people, but we also have specialist, we have a specialist arts anti-money laundering service as well that we subscribe to. But really and truly, this is something that isn't new, it's not going away. And most importantly for us and what we're looking to establish, there are lots of pitfalls in the industry. The fact that there are pumps and dumps, but for us.
So when prices just go up with speculation,
there was
and
one
then they
for
collapse
Squid
after
Games,
the last
Squid
mug
Games,
has bought them.
The Squid Games, and obviously because that was such a huge phenomenon, still is, people just jumped on the bandwagon. So because we have the advisory department, we can help educate people about scams. I know the previous guest that you had on, which is great. That's something we support. So we can actually help to educate people that not necessarily want to do business with us, but we can, help them avoid being scammed or let down, essentially.
Josh, what's the best way for ordinary people with a few £100 to invest to get some exposure to this phenomenon?
Yeah, so the easiest way would be to go on like a big marketplace. So the biggest currently is a website called OpenSea. OpenSea.
Okay, yeah.
And so the way it functions is pretty much like any sort of e-commerce site. Like when you're going on Amazon, type in a keyword, you find something you like, you can buy it. Exact same experience here, only you need to have purchased cryptocurrency. Now, what we're doing actually in our marketplace is you can skip that cryptocurrency thing.
So you can buy it with conventional money.
Yeah, with your
you don't
card
need to.
away,
Okay, so you can just buy it with a regular debit or credit
exactly.
card.
All you need to do is create a wallet, and that can be done on just any old smartphone.
Yeah.
And then you can use your card, and then you'll get the NFT.
I mean, I should say none of us are qualified to provide financial advice just because we're on television. I used to be, but my licence has lapsed. I used to be a fund manager. What we're trying to do here is elucidate, highlight an interesting economic and cultural phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
So where's this going to be, this market, in a year's time, James? Final question to you.
Well, as more and more larger...
You'll be back in the studio with another bunch of guys.
Absolutely, yeah. But, I mean, as large organisations get behind this, there's going to be more liquidity in the marketplace. Of course, and equally, people do like a bit of risk as well.
Yeah.
But if it's educated risk, and people have done their due diligence, which they will get via our help, then we expect the market to go from, likes of 11 billion, up to as far as 20 billion fairly soon.
Well, stay in touch. Let us know how you get on. It'll be very interesting to see what's happened. Thank you all for coming into the studio. We've got Joshua Sandhu here, we've got James Ryan, and we've got Ryan Marsh of Qantas Gallery.
Lots of Ryans.
You heard it here first, yeah. Now, just before we finish the show, I wanted to bring in a few of your comments on petrol prices. Kim emailed at gbviews@gbnews.uk to say prices at the pumps are way too high for the barrel price, which means only certain people are profiting. We, the consumers, should stop buying it, as that's the only way to stick it to them. Russell says, when you look at the pace of change of fuel pump prices linked to Brent crude or US light, prices are definitely moving up at a quicker pace than they are falling. Very true. And on economic crime, Victor's got in touch to say that the black economy is huge and dwarfs benefit fraud, but the Treasury chase benefit fraud because the public see that people are getting money for nothing. Thanks for all your emails. We really do appreciate you. You've been watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Every weekday at 1, I bring you your daily dose of economics, business and consumer news. You lucky people. Join me at 1 p.m. tomorrow for a 2-hour On the Money special. Catch up with previous episodes via the GB News app. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you in a minute because I'm here with Gloria Di Piero. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan. That was On the Money.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. It is cold out there today, but that strong wind that we had yesterday is gradually easing down, and for most, there's quite a bit of sunshine around as well. Here's the bigger picture. This little bump in the isobar's a ridge of high pressure, bringing most a fine day today, but this weather front will bring some wet weather tonight, and there are these little features that have been pushing down from the north. One brought some sleet and snow to parts of Wales and southwest England earlier on. That's clearing away. We do still have showers, though, just bumping into the east coast of England, particularly for Norfolk there, chiefly of rain. Elsewhere, most places fine and bright, sunny spells. The cloud increasing there for Northern Ireland and Scotland, so the sunshine turning hazy. It is chilly, temperatures below average for the time of year, but at least that wind is easing. Still a cold wind blowing those showers into the east coast through this evening. And then that next weather system bringing wet weather with some snow as it hits the colder air across Scotland for a time, and perhaps also for a time over parts of northern England, maybe even into the Midlands. A little bit of sleet and snow is possible. But although it'll turn quite cold this evening, that weather system will also introduce milder air, so temperatures will rise through the night. Still perhaps a little bit of snow across East Anglia and the southeast if you're up early enough on Friday morning, but that will quickly turn back to rain before the rain clears away. More rain then coming into the southwest later on tomorrow, but for, again, the bulk of the UK, it's dry. Quite a drab day across the south, lots of cloud here, but some sunny spells further north, but there will be some showers coming into western Scotland. Those showers of rain at low levels, but turning to snow over the hills. We could see a bit more rain pushing into Wales and perhaps a bit further north, maybe into the Midlands during Friday evening, and that leads into a mixed picture through the weekend. Going to stay on the cold side through the weekend. Some sunshine, but plenty of showers on Saturday. Sunny for many on Sunday, but still some showers along the east coast.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Join me, Alex Phillips, for the afternoon agenda on GB News, Monday to Thursday from 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. We don't lecture to you or try to tell you what to think. We do a deep delve into a topic with views from across the range of debate, therefore leaving you, the viewer, to make up your own mind. Join me, Alex Phillips, for the afternoon agenda on GB News, 4 till 6, Monday to Thursday.